Shane, how are things? Thanks a million for jumping on.
No problem. Good to see you again. Happy to jump on and share a bit of my story, I suppose.
No, it's been a while. It's been a while since we chatted last, but and since that you've been through the ringer a little bit with the injuries and down. But at the same time, things have gone well for you. How are you finding the whole professional setup with rugby at the moment in
Yeah, it's
America?
been good. Like you said, there's been many ups and there's been probably more downs in terms of, I suppose, the body lasting and stuff. But it was all part and parcel of it, isn't it? So I'm just at the stage now where I've just finished up Miami and I'm home there about 2 weeks now, and I'm looking at being home somewhere in the region of until January anyway. Um, so do a bit of work in my own business, all that kind of stuff. And yeah, suppose just take a small bit of time down now. I suppose I'm after wrapping up my 11th professional season.
Jesus.
Which is, yeah, so it's there's been a fair shift, and I suppose even before that, like even with like the underage stuff, I suppose like I was effectively training 4 or 5 days a week in the gym, as well as my 2 sessions and extra kicking sessions, everything. So like I've pretty much been living like a professional for 15 years, so it's good, but the body definitely needs that bit of a rest now, especially since I'm over the hump of 30. So give it a few weeks off. But I'm feeling good. At the end of the season, there was limited enough game time due to an injury, but back 100% fit by the end of the year. So nice to be fully fit going into the off season when I don't need to play. But sure, look, it is what it is.
Still, the extra bit of recovery time can go a long way. It's a different season, is it? With just before we were jumped on, we were talking about how Miami, the setup is a small bit different than you're used to. What's the main difference there?
Yeah, so traditionally in Europe, you start pre-season in probably July, and then your season will run the whole way through until May. And then you might have 4 or 5 weeks off, depending on how you progress towards semi-finals, quarterfinals, whatever it is. All the competition formats keep changing, so it's hard to keep track of. But in Miami, you start pre-season in like week 2 or 3 in January, and the first week of the season was the first week in March, and then that runs the whole way through until we were out at the last weekend of June. I think our last game was the 28th of June, where the conference finals ran this weekend, and then the championship game or whatever, the North American way they put it together, is on next weekend. So it's kind of only like a 6 or 7 month season, which is different to home. And there's positives to it, but there's challenges that come with that as well, And I think like people don't always see that stuff, but it's interesting how you're like, oh, great. Oh, 5 months off. That's unreal. You're like, yeah, mate, but I'm also not paid for 5 months. So it's like, do you know what I
Okay.
mean? So,
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
they're the kind of challenges that come in, and it's like, what am I going to do now? Luckily, I'm tipping away at my own stuff here online and stuff with the Rugby Mentor. So that's good. But like, there's definitely challenges that come with it, but it is good for the body. Like I said, have that bit of extra recovery, and then hopefully you can come back the following season better. But then there's the other side of that, is if you do too much recovery and you're not actually doing any intense training, your training age starts to fall back a bit, and you can't tolerate as much load and stuff. So it's just a matter of balancing it. And this is my second off season now, should we say, from the MLR. I was with the Arrows before I was with the Miami Sharks. So I learned a good few lessons last year about it. Kind of. I think you don't really learn these things until you kind of experienced it. Like, and typically being an athlete, someone will tell me something. Could have learned that myself. Like,
Yeah, yeah.
you're fucking thick head me, but but I've been an experiential learner always, and I think I don't foresee that changing, no matter how
Yes.
wise I get. So yeah.
So how does it work then? If you're in contract for your 6 7 months, and then you're out of season, are you allowed to play them on other clubs outside of that, or do you have to kind of stick
Yeah,
to
so
the
you can
same?
get what they call a temporary release. So I signed a 2 year contract with the Miami Sharks, so I'm back for next season from January through till July or whatever. Our first week in August if we make it the whole way to the final next year, hopefully. But so yeah, you can get a temporary release where they'll release you until a certain date, probably the end of December or whatever. So then that you'll be back. But obviously there's the element of, oh, you're going away now and you're playing, and like if you get injured, in all the contracts there's any means possible to, like, you need to look after yourself in the off season idea. Like if you come in injured, there's obviously all these fucking clauses and stuff where, oh, you're not fit to play, so
Okay.
do we need to keep you? And I'm not saying that the clubs are trying to shaft you or anything like that, but they're obviously protecting themselves as a business in the end of the day, and they don't
Exactly.
need lads coming in. What happens if 10 guys come in injured? All of a sudden you don't have a squad,
Yeah. Yeah. It's a high
So
impact sport as
yeah,
well.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it is. So it's
So
like as well prepared as you can be physically for it. There's so many collisions that, and funny enough, our bodies aren't made for these collisions. Like we weren't born with the purpose of being able to play rugby or American football or something, you know.
yeah,
So like a lot of the injuries are collision based.
yes.
So yeah,
And
so it's
so
just this, I suppose. Yeah.
over the last couple of years, then, because you have a lot of seasons put down, what are some of the main things that you've picked up on that you're saying that, okay, I need to be consistent with these as I come into a season? Like you're in the preseason now or the off season, let's say. What are the things that you need to be consistent with in the off season so that when you get into the preseason, the body's in good nick?
I think, like you said, man, like not much changes in terms of like the off field stuff, right? So like in terms of like still living like a pro, like I can't start sleeping 5 hours a night and shit like that. You know, I'm very much so to be at my best. I need 8 plus. You know, and I know that I can function off less, but I'm not as good. Things become harder day to day, like choices, like eating, all that stuff. Like obviously, I can't balloon up and gain 10 kilos of body fat and then try and have to hammer myself to take that off before going to preseason. So I still have to train like a professional. You're probably not like I'm not training 5 hours a day like I normally would be, you know. But I'm still putting in 1 to 2 hours, 4 to 5 times a week. So I think like the thing is to maintain more than like be like unless you're a young fella and you're like, oh, I'm really light, I need to gain a load of fucking muscle, and then it's like, right, you probably need to bring down your running load and take in so much more food and just really get after like a big hypertrophy kind of block. But for me personally, it's I need to try and maintain the day to day factors like the lifestyle kind of stuff as well as I can without having the structure of right, you need to be in the building for 7:30 for the attack leaders meeting, you know, and then you can leave at 2 after we've done our recovery session. So you kind of have to manage that. But for me personally, with some of the injuries I've had and stuff, like the running load is massive. If I let my running load go, I have to build it real gradually again. I can't just go from covering whatever a kilometer or two a week to going to 12, 14, 15 kilometers maybe in the first week of preseason. You know, if I do that much of a jump, like my body really suffers from it.
Yes.
And then it's not just running load, it's like obviously the intensity that comes with changing direction, with accelerations, decelerations, all that kind of stuff. So if I can keep that going, and like you can get some of that in, like you don't have to go out on the pitch and do 15 cuts on your left and 15 cuts on your right, you know, 3 sets of 5 or whatever. Like, you know, you can get that some of that stuff in by like doing a bit of five-a-side or playing a bit of GA or playing rugby for a club in the off season, and that can manage that massively, you know.
Yes.
But it is
Yes.
important to obviously take that bit of downtime, and then you obviously don't want to go in after playing a game your last week off into preseason on a Monday with a travel day and stuff like that, you know. So having kind of those bookends at either end of, let's say, if you go play a club season here in Ireland or wherever, like you have those kind of bookends where, okay, I still had these couple of weeks where I can bring my load down a little bit, you know, and just make sure that I have just given myself, like, or even run a deload or whatever to make sure that I'm fresh enough going into the actual season and that I'm not already on the back foot, kind of going out there and going into it.
Yeah. Okay. Is it? Do you have like looking at your or year round? Do you have a kind of a target weight that you like to be at certain times of the year? Then.
I'd say I have a target window, right? Like I don't think I need to be at 88.8 or whatever I was. I think it was 88.9 this morning. But like I played last season at, I was probably between 90 to 91. And I think is I was playing a bit more 15 than 10, so I'm going to have more collisions per game. And obviously, it's physics. You know, if you can be heavier going into a hit, you're going to be able to create more force and momentum through it. You're more likely to win it. Um, so I like playing in and around kind of that 88, 89. But I suppose for the position specific kind of thing, I just decided that playing a little bit heavier was grand, and it's only 2 kilos. 2 kilos is not, you know, anyone can pick that up, but even in terms of your efficiency and how you're moving and like, you know, like the old saying of fat don't fly, like, you know, like it all adds up. Like it's important, especially at that level. You know, it's not like it's I'm going to have to play five-a-side in this instance. You know, I'm going out against everyone else professional athlete. Everyone else is in good shape. Everyone else is strong. Everyone else is fast. And it's these 1%ers that can be the difference between winning and losing a game. So I suppose I was probably a little heavier than I normally was, but some of my best rugby I played in at 91, 92, you know? So it's kind
Yeah.
of like, it's not necessarily, it's not black and white. Like, you know, as long as I'm feeling good, that's good. But I think next season I'll probably try and play maybe a small bit lighter and just see how I go, especially during the preseason.
Yeah. How do you find it then to keep weight on? Because for me, and I just had a conversation. I haven't released the podcast yet with Daniel Davey, who was over Leinster for a while, and I was saying that one of the things that I struggle with the most is trying to keep weight on. is trying to put it on and keep it on, because once I start training, my either I like, obviously I don't focus on the calories or whatever it is. It's just not top of mind for me. I nearly focus on the skill side of training more so than anything else. How do you find keeping weight on in the middle of a season, especially when you're training 4 or 5 hours a day?
So I think like when I was younger, I found it really fucking hard, like
Yeah.
really hard. But I think as you educate yourself a bit more on it, and as you get a bit older, like I think it's a bit more predictable what's going to happen, especially as I know my own body, kind of that way, you know. And I think like you said there, like it's not top of your list, you know, but I know that I can't go in really light because then I won't have enough fuel to train properly the next day. Especially, it's not like I'm going out to run around for an hour. Like, you know, sometimes we have 2 hour pitch sessions in a day and a gym session. And I know that if I'm not fueled up, if I haven't eaten enough food, or if I've eaten too much or too little, I'm fucked at training, you know? And
Yeah.
then, like, I think as a young fella, for me, the whole performance thing was perform well at the weekend. It's all about the weekend, perform well at the weekend. Whereas I've got a bit older, especially since coming back from 1 or 2 bits of injuries, like I've moved more from a performance at the weekend mindset to daily performance. And if I can perform daily, the performance of the weekend always looks after itself. Do you know what I mean?
Yes.
Or at least I can be okay with not playing well because at least I've ticked all my boxes during the week and I've done that stuff. So like like I know if I'm skipping breakfast and stuff, like I'm tired in training or I'm hungry or I'm fucking grumpy and I can't communicate as well or get the best out of people, you know.
Yes.
And likewise, if I go home and I don't eat after training and then I eat in the evening, you know, I'm starving, I'm a grumpy bastard, and like it's, you know, like, and like it just has a knock-on effect to everything in the rest of your life as well, you know. So
Massively. Yeah.
I think because weight was such a big thing for me when I was younger, and it was like you're too small, bigger, 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 bigger. And then rugby's kind of moved not away from that. Like you obviously have to be bigger than your average Joe walking on the street, like, you know. But it's more about, can you be powerful and strong through contact? Can you hold your own in collisions? Can you move well? Kind of that side of it, you know. And also, I'm not a battering ram. I know that's not how I play. Like, you know, I'm very good off the boot. I'm good at organizing. I'm a good passer. I can be a threat at the line, but I'm also not a 100 meter sprinter. And I know I'm gassing everyone and going on the outside and going
Yes.
coast
Yes.
to coast, like, you know. So I think like as you get a bit older, you get a bit more comfortable with yourself, how you play, how your game works best for you, and then you can kind of figure out that kind of weight for you. So I don't think keeping a weight or keeping the weight on is as much of a challenge as it used to be. It's probably more keeping it down now because I'm so much thinking I need to eat this so I'm fueled and kind of, you know, that kind of a, and again, it's like I'm talking about like that 1.5, 2 kilo window. It's not like I'm going up to 100 kilos, you know. It's like, oh, I'm at 91, maybe I want to be at 89, like those
Yes.
windows, you know. And living in
Yeah.
America makes it all fucking harder as well. Jesus Christ.
What is with the food choices?
Oh yeah, like everything's delicious and everything's in your face, and you can't go anywhere without seeing 15 restaurants or 15 bakeries or whatever it is. Like, you know, there's so many food options there all the time.
Jesus.
Um,
Yeah. It's a
it's
it's
the
it's
environment
interesting.
thing again, you know. Like
That's
it's easy at home to eat well because everyone's conscious of it, but in America, people aren't. Like it's all money driven and that kind of stuff, you know. So it's
yeah.
like we can make money off this restaurant here, so we're obviously going to have it, you know.
Yeah.
And I'm not trying to make the Americans out to be awful either, just to put that out there, you know. But it's just it's the culture out there, you know. There's so much fast food. There's delicious food out there as well, but there's so much of it
It
per
does like
block of
go.
buildings or whatever. Like, yeah.
Do you meal prep then? Like when you're looking at your week, do you meal prep at the start of the week? Do you kind of have an idea in season? Let's say let's keep it to in season right now, because I'm sure there'll be a lot of guys here who are listening to this who play rugby, and in the middle of the season, do you kind of know Monday through Sunday that this is what I'm going to have for breakfast, this is what I have for lunch, this is what I have for dinner, and it's like it's fairly strict on itself each week, or do you
Um,
like to chop and change?
So no, I think variety is the absolute worst thing for an athlete when it comes to this stuff because you make so many decisions throughout the day as it is, right? So and there's like obviously the decision fatigue. If I have to decide what will I cook today, what recipe will I try today for every meal, like I'm already tired when I come home. I've already been
Yeah.
in 4 meetings and been on the pitch twice and in the gym once or twice. You know, like I've done all that as well as the travel there and back. Like you're obviously making decisions on the road, like all that stuff, doing a bit of the business stuff. Like you're just making so many decisions out the day. So I honestly, this is what I say to my guys all the time. I'm like, yes, you need some bit of like variety in your life. You can't just eat the same shit all the time. But you need to eat like a dog sometimes, just purely out of like for performance perspective. So I kind of work this traffic light system idea that if I have a lot of time, I can have this breakfast. If I have a small bit of time, I can have this one. But if it's short and sharp, I know that I need to have this. And most mornings are short and sharp because I'm out of the house by 6:30. You know, I'm not turning on the fucking blender and waking up the whole gaff, or I'm not cooking a 5-star breakfast. Do you know what I mean? Like, so it's like,
Yeah.
right, what can I have quickly here? It's right. It's probably overnight oats or something, you know? Like,
Yeah.
so I think that you need to know your couple of meals that you know fuel you. And like, I think I always say this to everyone, I think it's worth a while for absolutely everyone in the world to track calories for 2 weeks, as strict as you can, just for learning. Like, then after, and once you've done that bit of learning, like you can make your meals or have your, like, and I don't have 3 meals written down that I have for breakfast. You know, I don't have this, but I understand what's in what, and I know that if I have this, I'm fueled well, and then I don't have to think about anything to lunchtime. And there's no thought process in making that because I've done it for years now. You know,
Yes. Yeah.
so I think like breakfast and lunches are so consistent. Like there might be 2 or 3 options for both of them, and that's what I eat all the time. My snacks are nearly always the same. And then dinner, there's a bit more freedom with it. Like I'm always trying to choose higher quality foods, but like if there's people around, like I'm not, oh sorry, I can't eat, I gotta eat out of this lunchbox here now, or oh you're going for dinner, yeah, I'll come and eat out of my lunchbox, because I'm not a
Yeah.
fucking psychopath, like, you know. So like you have to enjoy your life as well. But like I think if you can manage to be consistent with about 80-85%, and as you get up the levels even higher, like, you know, like even for amateur players, if you can manage 70% of it, like you're in a really good spot to be fueled well, to train hard, and to kind of make those adaptations that you're looking to do within your training, you know. But I think that doesn't come from having to make, like, if you're having 3 meals and 2 snacks, that's 5 decisions a day, you know,
Yeah.
which
Yeah. Yeah.
adds up, and that's 35 a week, quick maths. So like, you know, that's there's a lot of thinking there, you know, where if you have your kind of couple of standardized meals for your breakfast, your lunch, and your snacks, like then you're a long way
What would they
towards
be
being where you want to be.
for you? I know you said overnight oats is like a
So
snack that you'd have in the morning.
yeah, so like
What?
if I'm trying to be quiet in the morning and not wake everyone up, like overnight oats would be something you can make the night before in 2 minutes, and you're grand. It takes all the boxes, you know, where your macronutrients, micronutrients is, you're good to go. I'm a absolute killer for a smoothie. I think everyone that doesn't have a smoothie a day is missing out on all the health and all the gains. So like that stuff, and then you obviously have like your kind of cooked breakfast where it might be like bacon, eggs, toast, something like that. Then for lunch, you ask about meal prep. Like I don't out and out be like, oh, here's 4 lunches, hey, you know. But what I'll always do is I'll cook a bigger dinner, and my dinner from the night before tends to be my lunch for the next day. Then in terms of snacks, like you can have like if you're on the road and you're on the go, like try grab a protein bar or something like that, something, or one of these protein milks or something, and a bit of fruit or something. You try to, like, I'm not saying to do that all the time, like, you know, and I hate when people are like, oh, this is exactly what I have all the time. You know, fuck, I eat ice cream and chocolate and all that stuff as well, you know, but it's in the right order, you know, where I've always got the foundations laid, and then that might be a little sprinkle on top, as opposed to like my breakfast isn't a chocolate bar. Do you know what I mean?
Yes.
Or a
Yeah. Yeah.
protein bar,
Exactly.
like, you know, like I'm like the majority of the decisions are the good ones. So yeah, I think that's the biggest thing though, is like having your breakfast nailed down, and then having, just cook more dinner and have it for lunch the next day, or cook a huge one if you want. Like it doesn't take any more time really, you know, whether you're cooking for one person or 2 people, or 2 people or 4 people. You might have to chop an extra onion, like, but you'll be all right, you know. And then but it takes the thinking out of it, man. And honestly, thinking
Yeah.
is like the worst thing you can do. You need to understand, so you need to think to understand, but once you understand, you need to think less, and you need to do more.
Yeah. Yeah. And last question then on that. What's the smoothie? What's the smoothie?
Whatever frozen fruit is in the the freezer. With, I usually use water, and then I'd use about 200 grams of Greek yogurt, and you're getting another 20 grams of protein there. Double scoop of whatever vanilla, and then if I'm feeling real fancy, a bit of spinach or something. But it ruins the color, it ruins the aesthetic look, you know. So depends if it's going on Instagram or not. Like. Depends if I'm
That's
trying to
it.
be healthy or Instagrammable.
That's it. It's a because I think that's the interesting thing. A lot of people probably think of when they look at the difference in amateur and pro, they're probably expecting these huge changes in everything else. But as you said there, like once you're getting 80% of the things right all of the time, it kind of keeps you ticking over and puts you in a good position to get everything else right
Yeah,
outside of that.
100%. Just
What are
on the
some of them?
smoothie as well there, actually, if it's a non-training day, I won't put oats in. If it's a training day, you probably have 50-60 grams of oats as well in it, because obviously, like I said, like you need to be fueled for that session. So I didn't say that there. Don't people think I'm not eating carbs or any of that crazy shit.
Yeah, no, that's
They're
fair.
my
That's
best
fair.
friend. They always love me, and I always love them. So but yeah, you're dead right, like in terms of that kind of like difference between amateur and pro, it's consistency, man. And it's like it's that ability to make those higher level decisions more consistently. And not everyone does it at the pro level either. Some people are just natural freaks, do you know what I mean? With low body fat, no matter what happens, fast twitch, muscle fiber, strong as fuck, and can just do it, you know. But I think
Yeah,
even those boys that are like that aren't fulfilling their potential by not having, like, because let's say, like, lots of people talk about one percenters like ice baths and stuff like that, you know, or an extra bit of foam rolling or whatever, you know, in the evening, like, you know. But realistically, like, nutrition isn't a one percenter, you know,
yeah,
it's like a
yeah,
20 percenter. It's huge, you know, like, it's massive. So, like, I think people leave stuff on the table even if they get there, like, and I'm a big believer that if you don't control all that you can control, you're leaving change on the table in terms of maximizing your potential, which is ultimately what everyone in pro sport, well, in my head, should want to do. Like.
yeah, yeah, exactly. What are some of the other differences? I remember one when I was in Bali, I was like jiu-jitsu. I kind of really got into that, and obviously when I went to Argentina, that became a bigger thing for me. But one guy who came out to us out there, he had 5 world titles in it at the time, and he was going for his 6th one that year. And I was talking to him about his way of training, or what way he looks at like performance or developing skills even. And he said if you looked at his performance, he only had 3 submissions. Like there's whatever hundreds of different submissions, but he said he has 3 submissions and he has 1,000 different routes just to get to those 3. So his whole day is focused on how can he put himself in a random position to get him back to the submission. Okay, so in a roundabout way, for me, that was a really like that was world like that was professional, that was world championship status of how you really develop a skill and how you get so good at a sport. So obviously you can see that he's been training for so many years. His name is Josh Hinger, for anyone who's into jiu-jitsu. When you look at sports, or when you look at rugby, or when you look at the difference between amateur and professional, what are some of the things like that in your position specifically that you have started to incorporate, or how would you resonate with that story?
I think, like, what I heard from that is that his game understanding is fucking incredible, right? And that he understands, like, he's seen all these pictures, he's seen ways of being in this, like you said, random position, and then he's in trouble, and how he reverses that, or how, like, knowing, like, oh, if I tuck his elbow here, like, I can roll him there, those kind of things, you know. And it's like, I know nothing about jiu-jitsu, but someone showed me that one before and I thought it was
It
cool.
was a good one,
So
yeah.
yeah, so, like, but, like, I think that's the thing for me, is like, how many positions, like, how many scenarios can I see on the pitch? How quickly can I compute that to then vocalizing it, or like, actually communicating that to other people, to then actually implementing the right thing to do in that scenario. So, like, everything that you do, and it's the same in life, man. Like, it's just pictures. You're just seeing pictures in front of you and you're reacting to it. You know, if I can do things that help me to be more proactive, so I don't get into that uncomfortable position in the first place, or I can, like, stuff like my off the ball movement. You know, if I can be in the right position earlier, then I can see more. Then I can make a more educated decision. Where if I'm arriving late because I was off the ground late because I didn't work my first whatever 3-5 steps, I didn't run, I walked instead, and now I'm being reactive, then everything's hard. You're under pressure. But if you can be in the driving seat of having seen these pictures, and that comes from doing, but it also comes from watching and from learning, and then looking at your game back and thinking, okay, right, maybe there was a bit of space in the edge there. Why? Because maybe there's just not a defender in the 15-meter channel out wide, you know. So maybe that is then, like, they're so narrow, maybe they can't come hard, you know, or maybe they can't come off the line to get us. So maybe we have a guy out there. So maybe the space is there. Do I kick pass? Do I go flat and pull it back? Am I a bit deeper, static, and giving the ball? And I think it's, like, so I'd agree with what Josh said in terms of that. Like, you know, like, it's all about, like, finding the route to success, and that looks different, or to a
Yeah.
successful outcome, or a positive outcome, or whatever. And also having your understandings of what a positive outcome are, you know. So, like, if Josh is in whatever kind of hold, or he's in a bit of bother, like, a success for him might be making it to the end of the round, or it might be making it out of that. It mightn't just be, okay, I'll flip him over here and then I can choke him out and then I win, you know. So that's not necessarily, like, I think, and, like, in rugby, a big one is everyone's like, oh, success is like a try. Success sometimes can be just winning the tackle line, so that they have to be a bit slower around the ruck, and then by that it opens up the space for the next phase, you know. So I think it's like managing the expectation around what a positive outcome is, and understanding that, but also, like I said, putting yourself in this scenario where you're seeing these pictures as much as you can. You're seeing other people do it, and then you're analyzing it, and then you're, like, looking at the small details, you know. It's very rarely the guy that scores the try that, like there's so many moving parts to it. Like, it's not just him. of course that happens, but even if someone gets the ball and runs the whole length of the field, like you'll often see guys giving people a nudge off the ball, their upfield line might just cut off the direct route of the defender, like stuff like that, and even the guys that are outside him holding width, if he makes a break up the middle, those defenders are thinking about the guys out wide as well, so they're involved in a split mindset, and when you're not decisive in rugby, and I assume jiu-jitsu as well, like that's when you get found out and that's when you get beaten, So I think the biggest thing is like how quick you can compute, understand information, and then act on it. And the fastest way to do that is how much work you can put into it when you're not actually in that scenario.
Yes. Okay. Yeah, that's a great description, or a great way of looking at it and kind of transferring it over to rugby, because as you said there, the guy getting the try often is just kind of the last piece of the puzzle when everything before has been put together. And one huge thing I think that I've noticed myself in my training and noticed in like when I was chatting to these guys as well is the element of fatigue. The element of fatigue and how you're processing in the first 10 minutes might be 100% and everything goes great. But if you're doing that then for, in the case of a rugby game, in the 70th minute where you still have to make the same decisions, how do you start to overcome that then?
I think by being comfortable in those situations, like I spoke about, right? Obviously, if you're unfit, you're going to be fucked, right? There's not much you can do. But a lot of the things like that I'd look about when I review my game is, okay, how quick was I off the ground there? And how quick am I going to my position? Am I running a big arc or am I running straight to where I need to be? Like, do I know where I'm going when I get off the ground? Do I understand my job within the structure? Do I know that? So if I get up off a ruck and I'm straight back to my position, okay, what are the couple of scenarios that can happen for me now? We can either go the same way. Okay, maybe I come around the corner and I'm in a sport line off 9 or inside 10 or whoever. If I'm coming up and I see the space in front of me, right, there's only 2 guys there. We're always 3. We should always be 3 when we reload. Okay, I can see there's only 2 there. There's 3 and they're real tight. Okay, that's my cue to take that decision. So it's coming down to having seen those pictures, understanding exactly what I'm trying to achieve by each movement. Like there's so many guys that just are super athletic and they run around and they work so hard and they're like, oh, I can't find my way in the game. Yeah, mate, but you're like a headless chicken. You're not really looking at exactly like what is the point in what you're doing. Like if I don't like, and this is something I really struggle with sometimes, if coaching is what I see to be substandard or whatever, and they're like, do this, why the fuck would I do that? Like, I need to have more of a reason to do it. And I don't mean like, and I'm not saying that in a whole team meeting and blowing up and making a fool out of anyone or anything. I don't mean that at all. But like, if I can't rationalize why I'm doing something, like I find it very hard to give 100% buy-in.
Yes.
So like, if you can break down to me, this is why we're doing this. Oh, unreal. Yeah, you have my 100% commitment to it. So I think it's knowing why you're doing what, and then having done it so many times and moving early to be in those positions, even when you're fucked, gives you more time to make those decisions, So like you said, split second decisions. How do I take it away from being a split second decision? How do I make that a second decision? How often have I seen that? What are my cues to make that decision? And I think when you look at it that way, then it becomes a bit less like, oh, I feel like I should do this because I want to touch the ball.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, if there's 4 guys in front of me, that has to mean there should be space on the other side. If there's not, okay, has the ball carrier and the cleaner, have they not taken out an extra guy? Where's space? There's always space. Is it in the chip line? Is it in the chip zone? Is it in the backfield? Like there's always going to be space somewhere. And if there's not, then sometimes it's okay, right, there's no space. What are we doing here? Right, we're going contestable. Make a contest out of it, put it further down the field, and then it comes down to skill execution. Can we make it slightly more favorable for us than them?
Yeah.
Because it's just how you transfer the pressure back onto them. But like you said, you want to take as much pressure off yourself, like when that mental fatigue comes in, by having done the work as early as you can to give yourself that extra split second and make that second.
Yes. Okay. And when you're looking at, so like, let's say this is a rugby, very specific rugby question. When you're looking at Ireland play, and you're looking at a lot of rugby teams play, they're going through the phases, and then it looks like your man just takes it out and boots the ball away. Like, obviously, it's gaining an advantage and you're gaining yardage and that, but it's not putting you under pressure because now you're on the defensive when you were on the offensive.
So there's different kinds of pressure, right? There's obviously pressure that you can maintain by holding the ball, and there's also territorial possession pressure. So like when they're in their half, one mistake, Ireland score. When Ireland are in their half, Ireland make one mistake, the other team scores. Are they under huge pressure? Like, and it mightn't always be a try, but it could be a penalty, a drop ball, whatever. And I think pressure leads to cracks. So if you're under so much pressure all the time, like you might be conceding penalties and nothing might happen, but in the last 20 minutes you might get a yellow card, and then it's 15 or 14 when everyone's already fatigued, and then that can lead to, I suppose, changing the outcome. The other thing is that teams are so organized these days that if you kick the ball, like, you should be able to put it up a contestable kick, like I said to you, so that now it's a 50-50, maybe even less than a 50-50 if the kick's good enough. And if the chase is good enough, like, the chase is so organized. Do you know what I mean? You rarely see someone catch the ball and run the whole pitch. They either catch it in a contest in the air and fall to the ground, they catch it and get absolutely smashed, or if the kick's a bit long, they'll catch it and kick it back, you know? So it's different. There's different kinds of pressure when it comes to it. So when Ireland are doing that, they're just trying to put the pressure back on the other team. And then, like I said, that leads to cracks down the line. But also, how many times do Ireland kick it and get the ball back? And then all of a sudden, now that defense is unstructured. So there's way more space, there's way more opportunity. Because running up against these, like, structured Ds is fucking hard, lad. It's really hard. They just go man for man, right? I'm going to go kill everyone. So you're like, fuck, I'm under so much pressure here. Right, what's the better thing to do? Instead of kind of keep playing into that. Because if they make a dominant hit, we all have to run backwards, try and run around the corner to then get forward. Where if we're going forward, they can't be aggressive because we've now won. So they have to run backwards before they can get set in D. Or otherwise they're offside. You know, and that's where that pressure comes from, holding the ball. But if you're holding the ball and you're not winning collisions, then you're under pressure. So then technically, generally what teams will do is they'll try and get back towards an edge so that they can kick, so that they can close it up and kind of box them in, or try and get the ball back. So it's all like, there's like you said, like, you're put yourself under pressure if the kick is poor, if the chase is poor. But especially at international level, you should be able to do that well, you know? So then you're just reapplying the pressure back to the other team. And that's kind of what it is, in hopes that it'll pay dividends further down the line.
Very interesting. So you are actually kind of manipulating fatigue a small bit, aren't you? You're trying to put them in a position that, as you said, the pressure builds up so much that there's a breakdown in there, communication or strategy. So that
also, if you're holding the ball, like really deep in your half for ages, like I said, like, it's very easy to turn it over, give a penalty away or a try or whatever. But also, it's fucking hard work holding the ball. You know, it's hard work. It's hard work running around and running across the pitch for 4 minutes. Like you don't see 4-minute phase very often. But if you're holding that in the wrong area, fuck, and then you turn it over and they get a score, it's like, Jesus Christ, that was some fucking waste of energy. You know, like, so there's a certain amount of, like, energy management. And I like thinking of it like, you know, the F1 cars, they're like, you need to mind the tires. You can't just go hell to leather. Like, you can't just drive as fast as you can all the time. You know, there's a certain amount of management to it. And then being the 10 or whoever, like one of the game drivers, like, you need to be 2 or 3 steps ahead. You know, like, if we lose this collision, we got to go here. If we win, we go here. And that's coming back to seeing the pictures, like I said, time and time again, reviewing and analysing and picking better coaches or players' minds on it and kind of the thoughts about it, you know. But you're kind of like the chess master as well, like, you know, so you need to be thinking. It's not just, you can't be reactionary all the time. You need to be proactive in terms of deciding when we're actually better to exit and put them under pressure and conserve our energy, because at the moment we're going nowhere here. And while we feel like we might break them, we haven't broken them and we're not scoring. And now it's a turnover and now they're kicking it and we've held the ball for 4 minutes and we're tired and now we're 10 meters from our line and we need to put in a do or die defensive effort, you know. So it's energy conservation as much as anything as well.
Okay, yeah, that's a very interesting way of looking at it. And I heard you mention there with coaches, obviously with different coaches, try to apply different strategies, and you want to understand why you're doing it. You were part of probably one of the best Connacht teams of the last, probably in the history, since when you won the Pro 12. What was the difference that year that Connacht were able to pull through and have such a dominant season?
So I think it had been building for a few years, because I was there the year before and we were pretty mid-table, but you could see boys were still learning how Pat Lam wanted us to play. And I think one thing that Pat Lam did, like, I'd say if anyone looked back, like, we probably didn't have the best squad in the competition, but my God, we were cohesive in what we were doing and everyone knew exactly what they had to do all the time. So we really maximized each person's potential from knowing, like, there's so little thinking involved, you know. So it was just doing. So, like, you're the outside clean here. That's your job in this ruck. Fucking nail it. Oh, I nailed that. Right now the ball's on a platter because the guy on the ground has turned his body so far that it's there for the 9 to move it quickly. And when the ball's quick, it's hard to defend. And it was different strategies in terms of, we're talking about reapplying pressure there with kicking. We had pretty much not a no kick policy, but pretty much a no kick policy, you know. Like, you could kick the score, you kick to regather the ball, but we weren't just kicking it away. We were backing our skills, holding the ball, putting them under pressure, because it can be really hard to defend, you know. But it can be hard to attack as well. So we had to back our fitness, but also, like, being clinical with the ball. And I think, like, one of the big things that Pat Lam changed in my mind is that, like, oh, you're under so much pressure near your own goal, you can't run. But if the right decision is to run, because that's what the defense has presented you with, like technically it should be the easiest place because they should have someone further back because everyone kicks, you know. So they might have a defender less in the front line. But skills are skills. No matter what the scenario, World Cup final, last kick a goal, or whether you're out there kicking the goal from the same place on the GA pitch instead of a rugby pitch on your own, you know, like it's the same kick. You know, obviously there's external things, but you need to be able to back your skills and go really, really, like one of the big things I got from him was like to be process driven, you know.
Okay.
So each pass, I'm pointing my hands to the target because I know my pass is better if I do that. I'm not just trying to fling the ball, you know, small things like that. And then that has such a knock on effect. But I think the clarity that everyone had in what they had to do for the team to be successful was good. And then as you do it and you start to see and reap the rewards of everyone almost celebrating when guys did something really good, or also on the converse being called out when you fucked it up or you didn't do it because you feel like whatever. It's like, well, that's selfish because you need to do this for the team.
Yes.
You know, and as you start to see and get that positive reinforcement, oh, if I just do my clean here, like leaves that space for them or whatever, you know, and we score, it's like, oh, that feels good. So, oh yeah. So if I just do my stuff, the team works because it's a team sport, but it's a bunch of individuals, you know, that have to come together to do the things to be selfless so that the team can do that. And I think that was like, as you start seeing that, you start building confidence. And when you have confidence, you're a different beast.
Yeah. Yeah. That's what, yeah. Okay. So it's everyone kind of had their role. Everyone knew what they were doing and everyone was just executing on that to the highest degree, really, wasn't it? Over a season.
Yeah.
That's
100%.
It's that easy. Yeah.
And obviously there's elements like there's things where like, yeah, it's easy in theory. It's fucking hard to put into reality. Like, there's obviously elements of luck that go with these things as well. Everything that's ever won anything has had a couple of like moments of luck, but then you break it down and say, is it luck or is it all the prep that we've done? And is it because we've done this every day? Like that mightn't necessarily show straight away, like delayed gratification and stuff. You know, I think like I said luck there, but I'm actually a big believer that you make your own luck in life. Like, you know, we've never seen someone, or very few people are super successful off the chance of luck.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
In
anything.
So yeah. So
yeah, no, that's an interesting insight into how it works, because even though it sounds simpler than obviously it is to put into practice and to do it over a full season as well, and the preseason and then the off season as well, keeping lads on track. It's amazing to see the results when it comes out at the end. Like, obviously, looking at the hurling this year, Clare, after coming back, winning All Ireland for the first time in 11 years, just throwing it in there.
I have to throw it in there.
But they've been obviously knocking at the door for so long, getting caught out. So it is good to see it when a team actually pulls through. But obviously in those seasons, and when you're looking at like over years of play, you're going to pick up injuries, you're going to pick up niggles and knocks. So it's hard to keep a team together over that time. What are some of the injuries that you dealt with over the years? What are some of the bigger ones, let's say? Let's not go into the minor.
We can do a podcast series on this one. So yeah, we were speaking obviously off air, but it was a small bit. But I think like I've obviously had a few concussions and stuff. They kind of lingered for a bit, like, but I don't think I've any long-lasting symptoms anyway. I still feel fairly functional day to day and that kind of thing. So that's obviously good. But no, in all seriousness, they're serious. Like, and you need to look after them well. But I feel like I always have, and I've been in a good place and looked after well by people with it. Because obviously there's always that inside voice. Oh, you'll be all right. You'll be all right. You know?
Yeah,
it's a short career. Like, you can do this. You know. But so I've always been looked after well in that. I had a double tightrope syndesmosis in my left ankle in 2017. In 2021, I had a bilateral adductor and abdominal release. That was a gooey one for osteitis pubis. And then my first game back, I broke my finger. So I've got a claw of a hand now. It's very, very unpractical. Can't carry the shot in bags, but sure, look. And then most recently this season, I ruptured my PCL, falling on a bent knee. So the most common area that people see the ruptured of isolated of just the PCL is in a car crash. So like it was a weird one. So I tore that, full rupture that, and a small little tear in my calf on the lateral side as well. So yeah, I've been through the ringer a bit. I'm sure we're still here and kicking.
That's it. Exactly. And let's go back to the concussions at the start. What was your treatment with that? Because I remember when you got it initially and we were chatting about it, it stuck around a little bit longer than it should have, didn't it?
Yeah, so like I don't want to say it was all in my head, but it was all in my head, being a concussion and that. But no, it wasn't all in my head. Like there's symptoms, but I think like a lot of the time with concussion, like I was searching so hard for symptoms. Am I
Yes.
okay? Am I not okay? And it's all consuming. And it was absolutely everything I thought about all the time throughout the day. And I remember like, you'd be like, do you want to kick a ball around outside? And I'd be like, oh, I can't do that. Get my heart rate up. Danger, danger, danger. And the whole thought process around them now has changed. Back then it was complete rest, nothing. Don't go to meetings. Don't use your phone. Don't read. Sit in a dark room. It's like, fucking hell, mate. I feel like I live in a cave here. Like, I can't just keep doing this. I need some normality to my life. And I think that even going that far sometimes can nearly be worse for it. Because then it's just me thinking about it all the time. Obviously, now the kind of protocols are, oh, you can go to threshold. Like, you can do a cycle and keep your heart rate below 100 beats per minute, and you're fine. Like, you're fine to do that. And I think it's kind of, it's better now than it was then. Sure, when I started playing, before I'd had all these concussions, and I started going into the pro game, I don't even think there was a return to play protocol for them. Like, or it was in its very, very early, like in its very infancy. So it's changed a lot, which is good. I think it's much better now. And I think the fact that the decision is now out of the players' hands and it's the independent match day doctor and stuff is fucking huge, huge.
Yes.
Like, because it's not your choice anymore. Of course, like, you're educated on it, and we do these videos of World Rugby all the time, and like, you're supposed to come forward if you see it, or if you see one of your teammates, you're supposed to let someone know. Obviously, it's very different when you're in the pressure cooker of a professional match, and your entire, like, literally your entire life's work has come to this result at the weekend.
Yes.
But I think people are understanding it more. People are seeing, like, there's lots of guys now coming with long term effects from it that would have played through them before. And I mean, like, you can type that into Google, anyone can find all that those kind of discussions and stuff, which are
Yeah.
scary. Like, so I think it's a very real thing, and people are much better at that now. So for me,
Yes.
it was like complete rest. And like I said, it hung around for a while, but I never came back before I was ready. And the physios and the doctors were really, really good at me, encouraging me to take the time and not to worry about it. But there's like a big psychological aspect to coming back after being out for that period of time. I think my first one was 10 weeks, and my second one was 12 weeks. And the amount of atrophy that happens, and the amount of detraining that happens, and all that stuff, like, back then, worse because you were doing nothing, like, doing nothing at all. And I'd come back then, I'd be absolutely fucked, like, you know,
Yeah. Yeah.
like, and it takes weeks to build it up again before you can play. It's not like it's like you come back after 10 weeks and you can play the following week.
Yeah.
Absolutely not.
It's
You
very
destroy your body, like, so.
yeah, I was going to say it's very interesting that you said there about the, like, there's an element of it that's in the head where you're always checking on it, because with the people that I deal with, it's always chronic injuries now, and there's such an element of when something's been going on so long that it just becomes part of your conscious. Like, you're always checking on it. You get up in the morning, you see how it is when you go out, when you're out of bed. You go up, you get breakfast, you just check what it's like again. And when you're looking at a chronic injury, especially like a back issue, or if you're looking at like a chronic knee injury, one that's gone on for longer than 6, 8 months, 12 months, a couple of years at a time, you could say, oftentimes they're fighting their own battle of that the pain is there, but is the pain there because the nervous system has now become a lot more sensitive because we're consistently checking on it? And oftentimes that's what happens, is they get this kind of a burn spot on the nervous system where it's just consistently all this input. Like, the brain is so intelligent, the nervous system is so intelligent, and it's excellent at healing if you put it in the right situation. But you can also go against yourself by telling yourself, oh, I can't bend down, or I shouldn't be doing that. Or as you were saying, oh, I don't want to get my heart rate up just in case anything happens. In the short term, it can be such an effective strategy. But when that starts to creep on for 3 months, 6 months, a year, especially when people from the top are telling you to do different things, like I always run into it with orthopedic surgeons, where it's like they're meaning the best for someone, but they just tell them, okay, you need to stop running for a while. They might just say you need to stop running for your back or your knee. And that person lives for 5 years or 10 years after saying that running's bad for my knees. I can't do anything. I don't want to put any impact on my knees. And their whole life has changed. A lot of them stop sport. A lot of them stop activity and exercise, and obviously the mental health side of that as well. So when you are looking at a chronic issue, it's really interesting that you said that there. Now, when it's gone past and you're out of that situation, that there was an element of a conscious, like that you were conscious of what you were doing at the time.
100%. And it's funny because, like, you look at more like, well, maybe it's not funny, but you look at more like a soft tissue injury or like a structural issue, right? Like my PCL recently. like, oh, you're in a brace now. Ooh, fucking brace for 3.5 weeks, straight leg. You know, you can sleep with it off.
Yeah.
Oh, I can't do that. I can't do that. I want to give the best possible to keep it on so that I'm not bending my knee when I'm sleeping, and I want my PRP shot to work, and you know. And then the brace comes off, and they're like, you can walk now. I'm like, can I fuck walk? My leg isn't bent in a month. Like, I definitely can't walk. And I'm like real slow, real limpy. And then by the end of the day, I'm walking like 90% normal that I ever was. You know, I'm like,
Yeah.
wow, there's some confidence there by practicing it, and I didn't think I could do that at the start of the day. And then I'm telling myself, oh, I'm fine. And then like I might go down the stairs, and obviously that's a much bigger bend in the knee, you know, and it challenges the knee backwards and stuff. And oh, okay, right, I'm not there yet, but that's fine. But if I hadn't decided that I was just doing things again, like I wouldn't have got there, and your recovery is going to be so much slower. And I think like that internal language, like every time, especially with the PCL injury that the most recent one, I never thought I could do the next step, and then I do it. I'm like, oh, that was fine, that was grand. I can hop. Oh, I can run. I can jog. Oh, Jesus, I have to cut today. I have to do a side step. I can't do that. I actually can do that. I can't fall on my knee. I can.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Okay. And it's a confidence thing. It's building it. But I think, like you said, if you're too, like, I think anything that's rigid breaks. You know, so like that rigid kind of mentality. I can't run. Well, if someone was chasing you with a gun, I'm pretty sure you'd fucking start running. Like, you know,
Right.
you know, or if your child ran out on the road, I'm pretty sure you'd run out on the road. You know, like, so I think if anything is too rigid, it can break, and you have to be open to kind of that exploration of the next step. And I mean, obviously, like, it's very hard, but like if you have someone that's so good at their job like you, or anything like that, that's helping you and leading you, that can obviously give you confidence in it. You know, like if I'd gone and run straight out of the brace, I probably wouldn't have been able to run, and that would have been a very fucking stupid thing for me to do. You know,
Yeah, and your confidence
because
gets
it's,
knocked again.
yeah, and it's like it's a gradual return to play. It's not just the brace off. Yeah, you can play now. Sound, best of luck there. You know, it's like, no. Well, there's criteria to tick. You know, if I have to
Yes.
walk first, I have to get my normal gait back. You know, then can I run slowly? Yeah. Okay. Am I doing other conditioning so my heart doesn't explode the first time I start running? You know, all that kind of stuff. Then can I hop? Yeah, because running is essentially a load of fucking hops, but at a way higher intensity. You know, so it's like, am I building all that stuff, building the tolerance? Because often you see someone come back from one injury and something else gets hurt because they haven't
Always.
gradually built up and like the tolerance to that. You know, like, am I going to pull a hamstring now or a calf coming back running because I haven't run in so long? No, because I did it gradually and I was looked after decently. You know, but without that help from someone else, and outsourcing that to have someone to guide me through it who's seen it, like, would I have got myself back? Probably. Would I have been anywhere near my best? No. Like, without a shadow of a doubt, no. I could have got back to a recreational, leisurely kind of standard, yeah, by just resting and doing fuck all, you know. But like, it's not the goal. That's not the goal. The goal is to play professional rugby, play international rugby, you know. So, but I think you break it down to anyone, like, and like I think that's what coaching can be so powerful. Is like, you don't know what you don't know, and there's no way of knowing it until you learn it, or until you know it or experience it, you know, whatever way you learn it. And by giving you're putting your trust in someone and letting them lead you through it is everything, you know, like, it's
Yeah,
everything.
someone who's has the knowledge that can kind of point you in the right directions. And the other thing is that, as you said yourself, you could figure it out, but it takes so much longer, and there's so much time wasted doing it. You know, like you you could go on chess.com there and start playing chess every day, but if you actually started ask the chess master, I'm sure you'd probably speed it up.
You get your ass handed to you a few times, but yeah,
Yeah,
exactly. Like,
exactly.
I think that's it, man. And there's shortcuts and there's cheat codes in life, and asking questions and getting help from people that are further along than you are experts. Like,
Yes.
you're just like, you're either paying with time or money. Do you know what I mean? Like, and it's so true. Like, you know, and my career's short, and like, it took me a few extra weeks to get back, and I was fucked off about that. You know, I didn't play
Yeah.
for 14 weeks. I wanted to play after 6 because they
Yes.
told me 6 to 10. I was like, sweet, I'll be back in 5. Obviously that didn't happen, you know, and like, that was probably the wrong recommendation around the amount of time I was going to be back in,
Yes.
considering I was in a brace for 3.5 weeks, you know. So I think it, like, but that's probably the, like, that information I was given was probably like, oh, back to recreation, like back to normal living, not back to playing professional sport against
Yeah, that's the
15 other
next level
guys or
to it.
23 other guys. Yeah, there's levels. There are levels. Like, I was very functional before I could play. You know,
Yes.
like, I wasn't crippled, and then the next week I could play. Like, you know, I did an awful lot of running, an awful lot of conditioning, an awful lot of like gradual reintroduction to load, and I had to do reintroduction to contact, and I had to do a full training week, and I have to be able to kick on the bad knee again, which is obviously challenged when the snap happens in the leg. and the knee wants to go backwards, like, and it was very uncomfortable the first time it happened. I felt like my biggest setback on about week 10, and I was like, I'm never going to play. And then you're like, hang on a second, like, relax yourself, will you? And you start thinking about it again, and maybe you vocalize it to someone, and it's like, what are you on about? You've been kicked in 10 weeks, of course it's going to be sore. You just took 10 weeks off and kicked, it'll be sore. You know, it's a real intense thing, like, you know, or it's a real intense like action. So, and it's not like I wasn't kicking at 10%. I was kicking at 100%, which is probably too soon for the knee, you know, but it's fine now. So I think like having that person to give you that reassurance can be massive as well, because it is easy. Like even within that rehab, there was times where I was so positive. There's times where I got so negative about it. There's times where you start like consciously being like, oh, I don't know if this is good. Like, what are you fucking on about, man? Get a grip of yourself here. You know? And I'm lucky that I've dealt with a lot of injuries. Lucky in the sense that I can now manage my mind a bit more about it, you know, and I've learned those lessons from previous injuries. Not lucky that I've been crippled for half my career, but
it is.
But like you start to learn, you learn how to manage it.
There's a skill in that. There's a skill that needs to be developed there, and something that you mentioned, I think, might go over some people's heads there, because obviously we were saying it in kind of a funny way, but the self-talk is so powerful. If you let the self-talk take over, and it will spiral negative. Like if you just let it take over and you just let it run its course, it's very easy to connect to all the negatives. But if you understand that you have control over that self-talk, it's the very first thing that you can start to implement straight away, no matter where you are in your injury journey at all. Yeah. You can always implement it at the start.
A simple reframing is everything, like that. Like the first day I kicked my left leg, instead of saying, I can't kick, my knee can't do that, that didn't feel great, but 2 weeks ago I wouldn't have been near that. Now I'm actually able to swing my leg with confidence through the ball. So let it settle, and then we'll build it up. I'm almost able to kick, or I will be able to kick soon, or those kind of ways. And like sometimes like people are like, oh, you can't look back. Don't look back. You got to look back sometimes to see how far you've come. Yes. You know, and I was actually able to swing my leg with confidence through the ball. Yeah. I wasn't able to fully extend my knee for weeks because I was nervous. Do you know what I mean? I was nervous that it's not going to catch, like, you know.
Yeah.
Or it's going to be tender, it's going to be sore. It's not sore there anymore, you know? So if I don't look back to see how far I've actually come, or remember when you couldn't run, remember when you were in a brace, I think getting your knee a little sore from kicking the ball at 100% intensity is probably not that bad a thing, you know? You can still run around, like, you know, it's a little unsettled, but by reframing it, think, I've come so far, like, I'll be able to do that next week. Or maybe I'm just not there yet, but I'm almost there. I know if I do this, I'll be there soon, you know? And going back to that.
Powerful reframe.
It's massive.
It is. And when you have the Rugby Mentor going at the moment, and while we're on the topic of coaching, and while we're on the topic of kind of like skipping a couple of steps, so you don't have to try learn through chess.com and try to figure it all out. How so how's that going for you at the moment?
It's good, man. The group is growing. We're actually doing an interview with Squidge Rugby tonight, who's a big kind of online personality. So they review games and they do kind of like funny recaps of competitions, but it's very serious, but they add an element of humor to it. So a lot of the guys in the group were big fans, and luckily enough, I knew one of them, and the other one of the guys in the group knows both of them. So shot them a message, and we're interviewing them tonight. So like, I think going back to that, like I think that, like we said, you pay with time or money. If you want to get ahead, like, and you can afford it, like, why wouldn't you? Do you know what I mean? If that's what you want, like, in terms of the coaching and stuff. But the boys are going good. We hop on a game plan call every 2 weeks to review the last two, preview the next 2 weeks, and kind of get that bit of connection like this. It's much easier chatting like this. If you had asked me to do a podcast, but you sent me all the questions and I replied to all of them by text, the chat would be very, very short, and you wouldn't be getting much out of me. Like, where we can actually get on and connect here, and like it's nice to see you and to chat to you and to see you laugh and smile and those things. Like, it brings me joy as well. So I think like that's why I decided to do that, because I think sometimes with online coaching you can lose that element of connection where it's just me texting or sending you a voice note or talking to the screen, and like you just kind of lose that human aspect, and I think like especially like with something like a rehab, like going through a rehab or going through your rugby career, it's an emotional thing. Like, there's emotional responses to it every day. There's challenges emotionally every day. By, I did that, I feel good. I didn't do that, I don't feel good. All right, well, let's break it down. Like, let's get into it a bit more. So I think having that bit of connection was massive, and I think it's probably the thing that's been the best that I've changed since started doing this. And I think it's better for me too, because I enjoy it more.
Who is who do you work with? What type of people are you working with?
So I'm working with younger rugby players. Well, any rugby player that wants to be the best rugby player they can be to get to their elite level. And then some guys that want to turn professional as well.
Nice.
So I've worked with a lot of guys, even in the same league in the MLR, like more on the psychological side of the game, like helping them deal with their emotions, like I spoke about, like that. Like dealing with like communication issues on the pitch. Like one guy was getting real angry, and it was like, the way, mate, you're not getting anything out of people the way you're communicating. So let's break it down a small bit. Let's come at it from a more of a logical standpoint. How do you deal with that? Then we do like game analysis to make sure that they can improve all the time, as well as their strength and conditioning and all those lifestyle aspects like sleep, all that kind of stuff. So basically everything I've learned over my career, I'm now putting it into one place for people to come access it. So like we said, you don't have to go onto chess.com and learn the slow way, but you can jump to checkmate right away,
Yeah, exactly. It's that's a good idea, man. I'd actually like to explore that for a second. I know I won't hold you too much longer, but I think it'd be interesting for people who would want to step on board or want to jump on board with you in the communication element. Somebody who's struggling on the pitch, what type of strategies would you look at there, or how would you help them in that situation?
So what was happening was, if you're getting frustrated over something, like I think it's very, very important in how you talk to people, how you actually bring your message across to get what you want. And I think a lot of people look like Johnny Sexton, for example, who was visibly angry, barking at people like really aggressively, and people try to emulate that, but people don't respond well to that. Do you know what I mean? Like if I'm like, for fuck's sake, Robbie, what are you doing? Like, you got to be here. What are you doing, man? Come on. You're gonna be like, straight away the wall comes up, and you go, fuck this lad. Like, is he all right? Like, but it is where if I say to you, like, oh, Robbie, that's really good. Like, I'm really happy that whatever you did, I'm really happy that like all your movement's really good, or you're really flat there, really good communication to me. But I just need you to do it. Can you just do this for me a little bit more like this? But like I said, it's going really well, man. This little tweak could be really positive for us. And then you frame it in a positive light, and you get buy-in. And like, I'm not being just going on the attack. Like, you can give like the old compliment sandwich, where you say something nice at the start and in the middle, and then you tell them what you really want in the middle. But sure, people react. Like, the whole understanding of it, like, if someone says something positive to me, I'm open to listen. Where if someone comes in straight away, you fucking idiot, I'm like, see you later, pal. Like, I'm not listening to anything you say now anyway. All I'm thinking about is that first thing you said to me. So I think different styles of communication, and then stuff like if you're not happy with your performance or how training's going and stuff like that, and and you're feeling unsettled and that, like, having these chats away from the emotions. So once it's settled, and then actually go and having a constructive chat, and how you approach that conversation with like a coach, if you need to train something more, you feel that way, like actually going to him and saying, mate, like, I'm really enjoying it, but I'm feeling uncomfortable in this scenario. Is there any chance that we could work on this? I think it'll be beneficial to the team, and it'll give us all more clarity. And I've noticed that in the last few weeks, this is maybe an aspect that the team has struggled at. But I think that this will really help the team, and phrasing things in a positive way, where you're being demanding, but you're not being demanding as in, we have to do this. You're being demanding by saying, this is why I actually think it's going to help. It shows that you've actually done your prep. You've actually thought about it, and you're not saying, we need to fucking practice defense. What do you mean? Like, defense is huge. It's so broad. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? What do you mean? Like, line out D, scrum D, kick chase? Like, what are you talking about? And I think if you can meet people like halfway in things, like, that's good. Whereas if it's just like, you're wrong, I'm right, do this. It's like, everyone's like, mate, get a grip of yourself. Who's this lad think is?
Yeah. No, that's perfect. I think that like everything you talked about, even looking at it from a football perspective, a lot of people who listen to this podcast are also playing GAA, and everything, or any team sport, you can apply that same skill to anything. And that idea of communication and being a better communicator, even in life,
even in work though, lad, like in anything, like in your life, if you want something off a family member, like, like if you come out all guns blazing, like, people don't like that. That's not how it works. Some people need a kick up the ass sometimes, but if you use that card too often, you're going to have no mates. No one's going to like you. Exactly. And people are definitely not listening to you unless you're like Tony Kelly and absolutely unbelievable or something like that.
Yeah, exactly. Unless you can prove it. Unless you have proven it. But so come here, Shane, I really, really appreciate you jumping on, man. Thanks a million. It was an excellent episode. A lot in there for people to unpack and to dig out and kind of apply in their own ways as well. But for the people who are interested in jumping on board with you, people who'd be interested in learning more about it, how do I get in contact?
So jump onto Instagram there. My handle is Shane O'Leary 1010. And just shoot me a message, and we'll have a chat, and we'll see if we'll be a good fit or not. If not, I'll point you in the right direction, and if yes, we'll make you the best rugby player you can be.
Perfect. And are you taking people on at the moment?
Yeah, so as I said, I've just finished my season, so I'm going to be putting out something shortly. Just saying that there's a couple more spaces available for people to jump on. Hopefully you can send me 100 new clients. That'd be lovely. But
Ideally.
no, we wouldn't take that many on quality, man. But yeah, no, there's definitely a space for a few more as my schedule ramps down a little bit and I'm not playing rugby 8 hours a day. So
yeah, this is the time of the year for it. Perfect. No, I appreciate you jumping on, man. Excellent episode. Really enjoyed it. Anything else that you want to leave with?
No, just to say thanks. I enjoyed it too. It's a nice chat, and it's kind of a bit of a different one as opposed to just talking about my journey from start to finish, and even like I think talking about like the psychological aspects of it stuff. I think it's really powerful, and obviously I enjoy all your content and what you do as well. And so well done. Keep it up.
Appreciate it. Okay, thank you guys for listening, and I will chat to you all at the same time next week. Have a good one. Nice.